Ladies and gentlemen, as per your request, many of you want an update on the Australian bushfires. Well, as of just now, bushfires are prompting Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews to declare state of emergency of disasters as blazes bring unprecedented risk to the region. And one of those people that are live on location in one of those regions is Giles from CF Jingara. He's somewhere near Sydney on the top of a hill, and it's a lot less cloudy today. Well, this morning, which is actually tomorrow, right?
Yeah. It's absolutely. It's Friday here. I've actually got some cool mist around. It's about 8 degrees. I've got a jacket on. It's actually the nicest thing after all the heat to actually have some cool weather. But the respite will be very short. What's happening down in Victoria at the moment is quite amazing, and the Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews has been doing the right thing and transferring the powers that he has across to the Victorian fire chief to allow the fire chief to have full reign of all the government resources to make sure the appropriate amount of funding and efforts go into supporting all the people who are stuck in remote locations. Victoria's actually in a lot of trouble because they've got roads closed everywhere. Up here in New South Wales, I'm actually southeast of Canberra, which is the national capital, and that's also about 200 kilometres south of Sydney. It's right on the cusp of there being a declaration of an emergency in this area in the next 24 to 48 hours. So I'm right on the way.
So we have a little connectivity issue, and your video froze up. But I want your opinion on Michael Mann. He claims he was vacationing there just at the same time these fires got lit, and then he conveniently published an article in The Guardian. Australia, your country is burning. Dangerous climate change is here with you now. What are your thoughts on that?
My honest thoughts about Michael Mann. I won't vocalise them on YouTube. They're too rude. But the guy has been opportunistic in so many circumstances by coming out here to Australia, and he's really putting his foot into a wasp's nest, if you want to call it that, because all of the news that I'm hearing at the moment is that people down on the south coast where the big fires are, down in Victoria, they are angry with the left. They're angry with the Greens for the lack of ability to do those controlled burns and those hazard reduction burns during winter and in spring and autumn. And Michael Mann's not getting the nicest response out here in Australia. There's a lot of people who find him very unsavoury, if you want to call it that. And there are a lot of people who are going to try and harass him either via his Twitter feed or actually in person when he tries to turn up to an event. There's now a bit of a movement going on to make sure that he is known for being Mr. Hockey Stick and being wrong.
Well, I got my his Twitter feed up here, which says the hockey stick, and I'm blocked. I didn't even know that until I went there today. So apparently he doesn't like me or what I have to say.
Oh, he doesn't like you at all. I'm blocked as well, but for what reason, I've got no idea. I've never talked to the guy. I've never talked about the guy before in my life, so I don't know how I got blocked. But hey, I don't mind. There are plenty of other people who aren't.
Now I have an article up here about the South Island glaciers turning brown by Australian bushfire smoke.
Oh yeah.
Now, did this happen back in 2003? And what are your thoughts on the upcoming events and the fire itself?
Yeah, it did happen in 2003. There's actually a lot of glacier ice core details that show the cyclical nature of the large bushfires here in Australia in the New Zealand glaciers. And so they actually are an amazing track record for the fires in this region. I'm trying to get my hands onto that paperwork that shows the actual dates in that glacier ice core for those fires. Now, the upcoming weekend's weather patterns mirror the Canberra bushfires of 2003, where fires moved close to 100 kilometres in one day with some of those fires moving as fast as I think 90 kilometres moved in 1 hour, where huge swaths of
We lost you again, Giles. You said huge swaths.
trees that were mowed flat by a fire tornado. In a video yesterday to show some of the scientific facts behind how these fires move rapidly during these hot and windy conditions, and that they don't go always in the direction that the wind wants to take it. And they often will find a crest of a hill and they'll run along the front of the crest and then build out again. So the fires are moving because there's so many rows of hills in this area of the country. So it's hill, valley, hill, valley, hill, valley, hill, valley. So all those hills, the fires are accelerating as they go over them and then building in nature. And then on top of that, they quite often will build a large pyrocumulus or pyrocumulonimbus cloud over the top and generate their own intense firestorm. And there's a high likelihood of that occurring again tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow could be a bad day. Now, over 1,500 sheep have been killed, 1,000 cattle, and some farmers are having to shoot their burned animals. I just showed a few pictures of that.
Yeah, it's quite disturbing. There's a lot of farmers around that are having to do the difficult deed of actually putting down some of these quality high-end breeding animals. A lot of the dairy farmers down the south coast couldn't actually save their animals, and so they got burnt. And when those animals get burnt to a certain level, you can't save them, even though they're alive. They'll die from septicemia or the burns, and so they have to put them down. It's really unfortunate. The worst part is that the sheep, when they get burnt, the lanolin in their wool actually creates a fireball around the sheep, and they not nice. It's not even nice to talk about. But this is the sort of thing that's occurring here at the moment. The fires are moving so quickly that farmers aren't actually able to save their animals. I think the figures are also up around the 480, 500 million native animals might be killed from these fires so far. And the fires have got months to run yet. So this is only going to grow in size.
Right, and then the food is gone, so there's no more grass to graze. A lot of the insects die. So what happens then?
So effectively, what's happening now is that there's emergency hay bales being airlifted in to the large cattle farms down the south coast, where all of their paddocks have been burnt. There's been a rapid coordination with the state government here in New South Wales to ensure that those dairies stay in action. Otherwise, milk will disappear from the shelves very quickly over the state of New South Wales. The majority of the milk in New South Wales comes from the south coast, where it's usually lush and green all the time.
So we have a map up here. The state of disaster will remain in place for 7 days over much of eastern Victoria. And after that, will they continue it if need be?
Are now showing that there will be rain falling fire zones Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week in the totals up to around 30 to 40 millimetres. So 1 to 1.5 inches of rain. It's not enough to completely put them out, but it is enough to actually hold them at bay for long enough that they can actually then get some really good constructed controls around some of those fires.
Well, that's definitely good news that the amount of rain is increasing, and you're in our prayers. Now let's talk about the scammers and the fact that a lot of people out here are poor and they need money. They lost everything, and even if they're not poor, they lost everything. So there's going to be scammers around and fake fundraising sites, and apparently it's a problem already.
Yeah, it is, and the worst part is it's actually two cattle farmers down on the south coast here of New South Wales stayed at home, father and son, to try and protect their farm. Now, what happened is that they were killed by the fire, and about a week after. So this happened on New Year's Eve, so a couple of days back. Within 24 hours of that occurring, some scammers put up fundraisers for the funeral and had started raising funds. When the wife of one of the gentlemen was told about this, she collapsed and she called the police. And luckily enough, I believe the people have been tracked down and they will be arrested for this. So these are the crazy things that occur. Now, we around here had a whole series of scammers and people coming in and offering help on farms to then steal equipment from those farmers in the 2017 Karwilla bushfires near my parents' place. People would come in and say, we'll give you help with your fencing for free. And they will want to stay on your farm. And then all of a sudden they go on the next day and they've taken all of the farm equipment that you have that is not locked down. There's just a bunch of people out there who will take an opportunity to loot and steal wherever they possibly can.
It's the state of the union currently. Now, over 780,000 hectares have burned in Victoria so far. How does that compare to the 2003 bushfires?
2003 bushfires was about 1.8 million. So the Victorian fires are only part of the fire mass at the moment. The larger amount of fires as a whole over the entire fire season is actually in New South Wales. I think the figures are around the 2.4 million hectares. So that's 12 million acres, about that. So it's a big fire, and it's scattered all the way down the coast of New South Wales. But the Victorian ones have been the hottest and the most recent.
Well, Giles, thank you for joining us. What would you tell the people listening? What can they do to help? Is there some verified place they can go to send money, or can local people donate things? Are you aware of anything that's legitimate and is the best way to help?
Yeah, so what I would do is I would always coordinate through either the RFS or the CFA. What I will do is I will provide you with some links, and so you can add them to this show, and that way you can actually then share that with everybody else. There are a lot of GoFundMe and fundraisers, things like that going on that are not certified or not valid. I would suggest sticking to the ones that are certified by the state governments. There are plenty of official fundraising companies and NGOs here in Australia that will be distributing funds and food, hay bales, things like that across the farmers of the southeast, and I'll provide you all those details.
Well, as always, Giles, we thank you for joining us on such short notice. We wish you the best. If you're listening, you can go subscribe to Giles' channel, CF Jingara, on YouTube, where he's got several videos. He's even got a video yesterday where he had to have a mask on. The smoke was so bad. He may have to evacuate tomorrow. Our prayers go out to you. Hopefully that rain starts early and you get to stay home and stay safe. Thanks for joining us, bro. We love you.
I really hope so. Love you too, mate. Thanks, Simon.